Hi, hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you're new here. This is Ripped Page Reviews. I am Heather, and today we are going to discuss everything I read in January 2026. So first on the list, I'm just going to go through a 10-volume series of manga that I read in January because I read them on Libby, and it makes more sense to just lump them all together in the beginning rather than take them individually, and that is the first 10 volumes of Dandadan by Yukinobu Tatsu. I gave each book roughly 4 to 5 stars, so I'm just going to say that I gave it 5 stars. I think I have 6 to 7 more volumes to read. Dandadan follows Momo and Okarun, who are two high schoolers who have similar beliefs in a sense, but don't in another sense. Okarun believes in alien life forms and not the paranormal or spiritual or supernatural world, and Momo believes in the paranormal or supernatural world while not believing in alien life forms. And their dynamic is so precious. I absolutely love watching them battle these creatures together. They end up discovering that they have powers, and they've been graced with the powers to fight these villains and these demons and these ghosts and these aliens. And the humor is really funny to me. It's definitely up my alley for the type of humor it is. It's dark humor. Some of it is crass humor, but it's really funny how it's done. The art style is so cool to look at, how Tatsu has been able to draw out these characters and make them come to life on the page. My husband showed me the anime of Dandadan, and I instantly fell in love with it. If you're a big fan of the X-Files, this might be something for you to check out, because Scully and Momo have a lot in common, and Mulder and Okarun kind of have a lot in common, and it's something that if you're missing that X-Files kick or that X-Files bite, Dandadan is going to provide that fix for you. The first technically book I finished in 2026 is Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. I gave this 4 stars. This follows Clara as she discovers she has powers that not many other people who come from her background should have, and chaos ensues. It's a romantasy, and I'm learning this year that maybe romantasy is not my genre to focus on. Maybe romantasy is something I dabble into every now and then. I did not like the beginning of this. I came close to DNFing it around maybe like the 25-30% mark, just because it felt like it was such a drag, and it was dragging so much. And it was kind of repetitive in the sense that you could tell what was going to happen. It's a romantasy. Obviously, she's going to fall in love with the guy she shouldn't fall in love with. Obviously, she's going to be the chosen one. Obviously, like, all of these things are just really repetitive to me. But it did pick up massively. And when it started picking up, I really thought I was just going to give it 3 stars. And it came out as 4. I definitely will pick up the sequel. The writing is easy to follow. There's nothing that's, like, majorly confusing or anything, but I did enjoy getting to read the descriptions of Clara illustrating these tarot cards, and it was really beautifully written in the sense of the way that she thinks and talks and acts. And if you're a big fan of romantasy, or you're a big fan of, like, taking the plucky heroine and dropping her into a world that she has nothing to do with normally, it's definitely one that I would recommend you pick up and check out. This is the second one I read, My Darkest Prayer. I did give it 4 stars. I greatly enjoyed my time with it. The only reason it got deducted a star was only because it felt like it dragged for maybe not the last, but like 30 pages before the climax and 30 pages before the end. It felt very, okay, we get it type of thing. But overall, I greatly enjoyed it. This follows Nathan Waymaker as he gets involved in his small town's very, very, very hidden secrets. And you can't help but root for Nathan. He was very easy to root for, and then there were some instances where it was like, you cannot be this dumb. You cannot be this stupid. But if you grew up in a small town, you kind of understood where he was coming from, and I grew up in a small town, so I got why he was acting the way he was acting in some instances, but in other instances I was like, just call it. Just do what you have to do. But if you're looking to get into S.A. Cosby, definitely read Razorblade Tears. But if you're not wanting to start off with like the most beloved S.A. Cosby, then My Darkest Prayer is probably a really good one to get into. The next book on the list that I read was Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. I read this on my Kindle and I gave this 3 stars. If you know me or you've watched my other videos, you know that I am a big horror reader. It's probably my favorite genre, but my second favorite genre is definitely mystery, thriller, suspense, anything like that in that genre. But Darling Girls fell flat. With Darling Girls, we follow Jessica, Nora, and Alicia as they are foster mothered by Miss Fairchild, and she would not be winning any Mother of the Year awards. Let's get that out of the way. But they have to go back to their small town because there is a dead body found on Miss Fairchild's foster home premise. Twist was not what it should have been. You read between the lines, you will very clearly be able to tell who the dead body is. The reason that it didn't get lower than 3 stars is because it did keep me entertained. It did keep me want to keep reading. It did keep my attention span, and I did want to pick it up and read it for a mystery thriller. The issue is that it was just so easy to tell after midway through. The next book I read was my first audiobook for 2026, and that is Grave Matter by Karina Hale. I gave this 2.5 stars, and we need to talk about it. So I borrowed this book because it was really funny. I was talking with my one mother-in-law, and we were talking about smut novels, and I said how I hadn't read a good smut in a long time. And she was like, you should remedy that. And then I was talking to my friend and I was telling her the same thing. And I was like, oh, I really haven't read a good dark romance in a while. And so I went on Libby, and of course it was recommending all the well-known romances. And I ended up finding Grave Matter. And the synopsis really got me. The synopsis really attracted me to the book. And I'm so sad that it fell so flat, but it's its own fault. This book opens with our female main character going to a hidden research facility to find a cure for Alzheimer's, and she had just recently lost her grandmother to Alzheimer's, and they were really close and everything. She ends up going to this facility, and on the plane ride there, she makes friends with a woman. Okay, a woman that she describes wearing a hot pink hijab. They end up kind of becoming friends on the plane, and then our female main character falls asleep. She wakes up when the plane arrives. The woman in the hijab is nowhere to be seen. So she's asking all around, and once she gets to the facility, she's asking all around, like, have you seen the woman in the pink hijab? Have you seen a woman wearing a hijab? Have you seen a young girl wearing a hijab? And it just felt like the author was really trying to nail it home that this other side character was wearing a hijab. In describing her to another character, fine, but then the internal dialogue of our female main character, even once she learned the name of that character, continued to be the woman in the hijab. And you don't need to call her that anymore, especially internally. There is no reason for you to call her that anymore. And then there were other details throughout the book that just really rubbed me the wrong way. The way that she was describing characters and the way that she was going about talking about characters. And it just really, really did not sit right with me. And then the twist isn't even worth it. It was not worth it. I didn't enjoy my time. I didn't like the descriptions of it. And I probably won't try another book by this author. The next book on the list, I am so happy to say, is my first 5-star read of 2026. This next book is my official second 6-star read, and that is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is my now second favorite book of all time. I am confident in saying the phrase, if you like The Secret History, you won't like this book. And if you don't like The Secret History, you will like this book, is correct. I don't like The Secret History. I don't like how pretentious it is. I don't like the writing. Again, I can go on and on and on about that book. But this book is beautiful. This book is one of my new favorite books. I could not put it down. It does have a very slow start. And if you can get past the first 15, 20 pages of the slow start, this book will hook you. The story follows Oliver 10 years after pleading guilty to a murder he did not commit. And this is him telling the story to the arresting detective. And we kind of go back in time with Oliver and watch how everything unfolded and how the murder took place. And the twist of who the actual murderer is, I kind of saw coming, but I wasn't entirely sure. And I really thought I was incorrect for the longest time. And then I moved on to thinking it was somebody else. And then it was revealed that I was correct in my first assumption. If you want a good fantasy, if you want a good Shakespearean inspired mystery thriller, definitely check this out. I could go on and on and on. The next book on the list that I read is Blood Sisters by Vanessa Lilly, and I gave this 4.5 stars. This is a mystery thriller that follows Sid Walker, who is an archaeologist for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And while she herself is Cherokee, she is white presenting, so she feels like she can't take on that acknowledgement that she's Cherokee, and this book really dives into the Native Americans that are white presenting but also are Native American, as well as following her story as she finds out her sister has been kidnapped. And 15 years ago, her sister, and their best friend were at the heart of a horrific crime that they were victims of. And with those memories coming back up, on top of Emma Lou being kidnapped, on top of trying to deal with her own identity, on top of trying to fix her broken marriage, Sid just has had enough. And so she returns home to Oklahoma, and she realizes that her hidden town has she realizes that her small town has a lot more secrets than she ever could dream. So I cannot wait to read the sequel to this series. I absolutely love Sid. I love getting to follow her. I love getting to be in her brain. I love getting to pick her brain. She is a very formidable heroine, and I could not have asked for a better main character to follow. The next book on the list I also rated 4.5 stars, and that is the final book in the Ruinous Love trilogy, Scythe and Sparrow by Brynne Weaver. If you don't know, I absolutely adore this trilogy. Butcher and Blackbird is probably my favorite out of the three of them, but I think Scythe and Sparrow comes second, and then Leather and Lark, which is the sequel to Butcher and Blackbird. I absolutely love the Kane brothers. This follows the third Kane brother, Fionn. I think that's how you pronounce it. I truthfully don't know. I probably should have looked it up, but it follows him and it follows Rose Evans, and I love Rose and Fionn's dialogue and banter and the way that they interact with each other. This book had me blushing. This book had me laughing. This book had me kicking my feet. I absolutely love these characters. 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished was my second audiobook of 2026, and that was Night of the Living Rez by Morgan Talty, and I gave this 4 stars. I'm not a big fan of short story anthologies or anything that's like 3 to 4 short stories in one book. I really prefer just one whole complete story. But the interesting thing with Night of the Living Rez is that while it is its own individual stories and it's an anthology of short stories, they're all connected. In every short story anthology, you have your absolute favorites and you have your ones that don't quite hit as hard. But this one really, I really enjoyed quite the majority of all of these stories. I think I only gave 1 or 2 3 stars, and the rest were 4 and 5. And then I was on an audiobook kick around the time that I finished Night of the Living Rez, and I immediately picked up Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huan. I gave this 3.5 stars. It's very reminiscent of like Youth Juice or Rouge by Mona Awad. If you like The Substance, I have not seen The Substance yet, but with Demi Moore, but if you like The Substance, you probably would like this book. This book follows our female main character who is going through life, and she gets a job, I believe it's as an intern, with this company that specializes in like creams and potions and moisturizers and all those things that help you stay young. And there was a really brief point in it where I thought about DNFing because it just felt so repetitive of Rouge and Youth Juice. And I really enjoyed Youth Juice. I did not enjoy Rouge. But with Natural Beauty, I really ended up liking the meaning behind it. And at the end of the story, there's a twist that you don't see coming. And the way that the twist is handled is what solidified it as a 3.5 rating for me. It was enjoyable. I liked it. It was fine. Would I read it again? Probably not. Would I recommend it if you wanted something about beauty and the beauty world and skincare and all that? Probably not. But if you liked, like I said, if you liked Youth Juice, if you liked Rouge, and this is what I wanted Rouge by Mona Awad to be. I think I also said that with my review of Youth Juice, is that this is what I wanted Rouge to be. This is what I wanted from Rouge. And Rouge did not deliver in any aspect of the word. Next on the list is a book that had me sobbing into my husband's arms. And that is Watermoon by Samantha Soto Yembao. I gave this 5 stars, and this will forever live in infamy on my favorites shelf. This follows Hannah as she takes over her father's special magical pawn shop. And what is special about the pawn shop is that you can't pawn physical items. You can only pawn memories or parts of your soul. And when Hannah wakes up on her first day as owner of the pawn shop, she finds her father missing, and the pawn shop is completely ruined. And if you enjoy The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I think that's mainly why I enjoyed Watermoon, is because it's very, very reminiscent to Addie and Henry's story. I cannot recommend this enough if you want a cozy fantasy. Not cozy in the sense that it's similar to like Legends and Lattes, but cozy in the sense that it's going to feel like a hot bowl of soup on the end of a cold day. It is beautiful, it is lush, it is vibrant, it is immersive. It makes you really, really think about memories and people and emotions and life and just everything all at once. I cannot recommend this enough, especially if you like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. The next book I read is one of my very lower rated books of 2026, and that is Tell Them You Lied by Laura Leffler. I gave this 2.5 stars. And that's because the synopsis lied to me. I feel like it lied to me. So the synopsis on Libby is not the synopsis that was on Storygraph. So I don't use Goodreads anymore to track my reading. I use Storygraph. And I saw the synopsis on Storygraph and I was like, this isn't the right book. So I went back to Libby to check, and it was the right book. But the synopsis on Libby was vastly different than the synopsis on Storygraph. And this was not fleshed out right. And plus the editing, there needed to be more editing. And if you saw my Threads post about this book, I was livid about the editing process because we are missing quotation marks greatly. And used beginning quotation marks and then just didn't use end quotation marks ever. And that's okay in some instances, but in other instances, that doesn't make sense. That's not grammatically correct. And I also deducted stars because this book was just not fun. This book was not enjoyable. This book was not fun. This book was not entertaining. This book was a slog to get through. This follows Anna as she finds out the prank that her and another friend were pulling against their friend Willow may not have gone the way that it should have, and their prank was to have her mugged or jumped, or however you want to phrase it, but the morning that is supposed to happen is the morning of the 9/11 attack. And so Willow has a job near the site of 9/11, near the site of the Twin Towers. And so obviously everything was shut down, you weren't allowed to be near the area and everything around that time. So weeks go by and they don't hear from Willow. And Anna starts panicking, and we get to go back and forth in the timeline of when they met as friends versus now that they're adults. But the timeline was also really, really messed up because you think that the timeline happened 4, 5, 6 years ago, and I think even Anna says it was 4, 5, 6 years ago. But then all of a sudden, this timeline catches up to present day, and everything that just transpired happened a couple months ago. And it didn't make sense at all in any way of the form. I sat down and wrote out the timeline myself, and I don't think the author did that, and she needed to, because I think she confused herself. The next book I read, I rated a lot higher than Tell Them You Lied, and that is Julie Tudor Is Not a Psychopath by Jennifer Helditch. And I gave this 4 stars. This was so fun. Joe Goldberg ain't got nothing on Julie Tudor, okay? This woman is a true psychopath. This woman is a sociopath. This woman is so fun. I approve of women's rights and wrongs, okay? This was so fun. The main character, Julie Tudor, is a 49-year-old woman who is convinced that Sean, who is 25, and her are in a secret hidden relationship. And they're talking in code all the time. And when he says, oh yeah, I've got plans, I'll probably pop out tonight to the bars, to the pubs, that's code to her for I'm coming over. It's such a fun read. I was giggling, I was kicking my feet. I was approving of everything she was doing, which probably isn't a good thing. I found the way she talks and the way she acts just really funny. And I really, really enjoyed her. And I hope Jennifer Helditch continues to write characters like this and continues to write books like this, because I love books with female rage, and Julie Tudor is 100% female rage personified. You want a dark comedy in the vein of You by Caroline Kepnes, or in the vein of Dexter, Julie Tudor Is Not a Psychopath is for you. The next book I read in January was Off Track by Esha Patel, and I gave this 3.5 stars. If you know me or you don't know me, here's a fun fact. I am a huge F1 fan. There was nothing of substance to me in this book, and I enjoy my F1 romances to be very on track but off track. I enjoy my F1 romances when it's focused on the sport and they're driving, or it's 2 drivers. I don't really like it when it's 2 drivers that are involved. I greatly enjoyed Pole Position. I greatly enjoyed the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher. I have only read the first one, but I do have the next 2. I just have to get the 4th one. And there's been another 1 or 2 that I greatly enjoyed, but Off Track just didn't quite hit for me. I did enjoy Diana, I did enjoy Miguel. They really are very cute together, and I like how the ending wasn't the typical ending that I've witnessed when the romance is between 2 drivers. But it just felt lackluster. I wasn't really rooting for Miguel or Diana, like, individually, and that's something that I really like to do when it's an F1 book, is that I root for them individually, not just each on their own. But it was fine. The next book on the list is Censor by Junji Ito. I gave this 4 stars. I have started getting really big into Junji Ito as of last year and this year. And this is my, I want to say, 4th or 5th book I've read by him, and he never disappoints. I've never given a Junji Ito book, I think, below 3 stars. And if I did, it's only because the premise was really not there for me. This book is Junji Ito's own take on the birth of Christianity. And as someone who's religious, at first I was very kind of off-put by it, and I was like, I don't like that. But then it actually was done really, really, really well. And it got me thinking about what would happen if we could go back in time to the birth of religion, of any religion, and see, like, the events take place with our own eyes. Overall, it was a really good time. I read this on a whole lunch break. I took an hour lunch break and finished this book. Next up is Small Game by Blair Braverman. I gave this 2.5 stars. This is an audiobook that I listened to. And listen, I enjoy Survivor. I really do enjoy Survivor. I grew up on Survivor. And this book, the synopsis reminded me of Survivor. And I was like, you know what? I'm in. Let's try it. No. No. The ending was rushed. I hate any thriller or mystery or suspense when the ending is rushed and the ending isn't necessarily a cop-out, but instead of taking us through the ending, it's just a paragraph or two of, this is what happens eventually, but as of right now, this is where they're at. And like, we know what the outcome is going to be, but they don't know. And I did not enjoy that at all. And I did not want to pick up this book at all. Halfway through, I got tired. And I got annoyed. This book follows Mara as she tries out for a survival reality TV show, and eventually she gets accepted, and it's her and I want to say 5 or 6 other people. The crew end up going missing, and they're unable to find them anywhere. They don't know what happened to them, and that's a plot hole we're never told either. We never find out what happens to the crew that went missing, like the camera crew. We never find that out. It felt like the author got lazy and bored halfway through and didn't know or didn't want to finish this book. Next on the list is the lowest rated book I read in January, and I'm so mad about it because I paid $10 for this book, and that is 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. The reason I gave this book 1.5 stars is because it is stupid. I want compensation for wasting my time. This book is not good. This book has every single mystery thriller trope that you can imagine, but done in the worst way possible. This book is about this couple that end up meeting, and it's at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Like, it just started. And I think they're in Scotland or Ireland, or they're somewhere like that. End up deciding to move in together and like quarantining together. And then one of them is found dead in the apartment. I don't like books that take place during the pandemic. We lived through it. I don't need to live through it again fictitiously. Okay, don't waste your time. The next book I read was another Kindle read, and that is With a Vengeance by Riley Sagar. I gave this 3 stars. I'm learning that Riley Sagar's backlist, like his older books, his first 4 or 5 books, are my favorite things he's ever written. With a Vengeance is very obviously inspired, strongly inspired by Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. Now, I have no problem with you taking inspiration from a Christie book or a Sherlock Holmes story or a Nancy Drew story or the Hardy Boys or anything like that. I have no problem with that. No ideas are original ideas anymore, and that's fine. But if you're going to be inspired by the queen of crime, Agatha Christie, add your own twist to it. The issue is that the reveal sucked, and I could tell who the killer was 20 pages into the story. I also read his new book last year. I forget what it's called. I have no recollection of... I know what the cover looks like, but I read it last year. I think I gave it 2.5, 3, and then the year before that, or the couple months before that, when another of his new books came out, I read it and I didn't like it. So I really like his older writing, but his newer writing just doesn't hit the same way. The next book I read was a physical read, but I don't have it. It is currently shipped to the next person because MKM Library on Instagram, she created a book club for a few of us to get together with and read weird girl horror, essentially. And the book that we ended up landing on was A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. I gave this 3.5 stars. I don't want to say too much about it because we agreed not to do any reviews until the end after the last person read it, just so we're not spoiling anything or providing any hidden clues that the book itself wouldn't provide. But the only thing I will say, there's a scene in Disney's Peter Pan, like the animated Peter Pan, when Peter and Wendy are talking and Peter says girls talk too much. Yes, in the case of Dorothy Daniels, she talks way too much. This needed to be 20 to 30 pages less. Next on the list is an audiobook, Such a Good Wife by Serafina Nova Glass. I gave this 3 stars. This is a mystery thriller that follows Melanie Hale as she begins an affair with a local author who later ends up dead. This was fine. This was very well written, I will say. This wasn't my first Serafina Nova Glass book. I think it was my second or third. I would have to look it up. I do like her writing. I do like her mystery thriller. I do like her storytelling. But this just kind of was meh. It was a popcorn thriller, and that's really all I can say about it. Coming in at number 18, we have I'll Make a Spectacle of You by Beatrice Winifred Eicher. I gave this 4 stars. This was such a fun horror. I went into this a little blind. I mean, I read the synopsis on the back. I knew what it was about, but I didn't think it was about that. I don't want to spoil any of these, so I'm not going to say what it actually ends up turning out to be, but this was so fun. If you enjoy horror with a side of religion, this is definitely one to pick up. We get to follow Zora Robinson. She ends up uncovering a secret society called the Keepers, and we get to see Zora's point of view as well as diary entries from another character, as well as the creator of the college and the secret society through his point of view, and this just was so much fun. I have no words for Beatrice Winifred Eicher's storytelling and writing. This was so enjoyable. It wasn't creepy to me, but that could be because I'm just a little numb and desensitized to horror at this point. But there were some parts where the shadows in my apartment started to freak me out a little bit. And after I'll Make a Spectacle of You, I read 3 Miles Past by Stephen Graham Jones. I gave this 3.5 stars. It's very short, 3 short story collection that made my stomach turn. The first story in this book is Interstate Love Affair, I believe, and it made my stomach turn. It made my skin crawl. It made me want to throw up. I hated it. The second story is No Takebacks, and it was kind of confusing, but towards the end of it, I started gathering where he was coming from. And then the final story, The Coming of Night, that story really confused me. And I get the metaphor that it's trying to get across, but I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. I don't like insect horror. That's one thing that I'm not a fan of. So anything that's like insects burrowing or laying eggs, I'm out. So this one was 3.5 stars because they are horror short stories, but don't read them with a full stomach or while eating. Don't do that to yourself. One of the last physical books I read in January was Good Girl, Bad Blood, the sequel to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This was so fun. I gave it 4 stars. I finished it in an entire sitting. I couldn't put it down, and I absolutely love Pip Amobi Fitz as a character. She is formidable, and she is strong-willed, and she is stubborn, and she is fiery, and she is human, and I absolutely love that about her. My only complaint is that she's very easily swayed one way or another when she wants to do something versus not do something, and that really came to fact in this book in the beginning. But I didn't see the end coming, and I'm really curious how she's going to act and be portrayed in As Good as Dead, and I really want to read it quick, like in the near future. So 1, I can finish the trilogy that has been sitting on my shelf for 2 years at this point, and 2, I don't want to say goodbye to Pip, but I also want to finish the trilogy to see if it's worth keeping it for my shelf or maybe donating it. But if you like the series or you like the first book, you probably will like the second one as well. And then I took a little bit of a break physically for physical reads, and I listened to After Alice by Gregory Maguire. This was 2 stars because I'm so confused still on what the purpose of this book was. Follows Ada, who is I don't even know if she's friends with Alice, to be honest with you. It's portrayed that she's friends with Alice, but there's no we don't see them as friends. We don't see them as even remotely knowing each other. And she follows after Alice down the rabbit hole, and she's trying to find Alice to bring her back home. And then we went back to the real world where Alice's sister, I want to say, is trying to set up the housemaid or their handmaid with a cook or a chef or something, I don't know. I'm still confused, okay? I've looked at reviews and synopsises and like discussions about After Alice, and I'm still even more confused. The next book on the list is my final physical read of January, and that is Moon of the Turning Leaves by Wabugishi Grace, and I gave this 4 stars. It follows Evan Whitesky as he and a group of his peers, as well as his now grown daughter, end up venturing further south from Canada to where they escaped in the first book, to see what is left of the reservation, to see what is left of the land, what it looks like. And they come across a lot of racism, they come across a lot of death, they come across a lot of potential safety, and it just is beautifully written, and I love the takes that Wabugishi Grace offers with the characters. There were some tears shed over some deaths, and the ending is so unfair, but I do recommend this series if you want a good solitary, isolation, dystopian, end of the world type. Well, duology. I don't think it's a series. This one is thicker than Moon of the Crusted Snow, but I think it's needed just to really pull in everything and end off the duology. And duologies are so tricky for me because I either love one of them and hate the other one, or I hate both of them. And this duology, I genuinely love both of them. I think I gave Moon of the Crusted Snow 4 or 5 stars when I read it, and this is 4 stars. I highly recommend if you're in the market for a Native American story about isolation and the end of the world, and just a little bit of a retake on Native Americans' journeys through life and history. The next 2 books I read are audiobooks, and the first one is Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor, and I gave this 4 stars. This was such a fun sci-fi dystopian book to read, as well as a little bit of fantasy. This follows Fatima as she becomes the daughter of death, and when she was really young, she came in contact with a mysterious alien entity, and this alien entity kind of marked her, and I believe it was a year or 2 later, she ends up getting killed in a horrific car accident, and she is paid a visit by Death, and Death then marks her as an entity who, whatever and whoever she touches does die or will die, and she ends up going by the name of Sankofa, which means nothing to anyone but her, the only tie to her family and her past. And this was such a good, immersive, lush read. I loved spending my time with Fatima. I just found out right before making this video that it's actually a series, so I will have to look into that. And then the next book I read was a memoir, and memoirs are always so tricky to rate for me because obviously it's somebody's story that like truly happened to them and you don't want to rate their life events, but I try to rate more in terms of the storytelling and the writing and the portrayal that they do. And this audiobook kind of fell a little flat for me, and that is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I gave this 3 stars. It was fine, but the writing style is not my style. I didn't enjoy the writing style. I didn't enjoy the storytelling. I really wanted more from what I heard, and I know a lot of people really did enjoy this book. I've seen reviews that say like this is so fun, this is so entertaining, this is like a wonderful take on things. And again, it's a memoir, so it's really hard to like judge a person's life, but I just think if it was different writing style, I probably would have enjoyed it a little more. And then last but certainly not least, the last book I read in January was Graceling by Kristin Cashore. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is book 1 of the Graceling Realm series. It's a YA fantasy, and when I tell you this is the best fantasy I have read in a long time. I read this on Kindle. It took me a while to get through it just because I was kind of prioritizing other reads, but I could not put it down when I picked it up. I absolutely love Katsa as a female main character. She is so formidable and strong, and she doesn't take anybody's crap. She stays true to herself. She doesn't want to change. There is a slight love plot line, like love interest and romance plot line, but it's not built up. It's not romantasy. It's not the main focus of Katsa. And some of the side characters try to change Katsa's belief, and she doesn't even change her belief for the man she loves. Like, that says a lot to me when you have your female main character, especially in a fantasy, be offered everything that a romantasy heroine is offered, and she's like, nope, I'm good. I don't need that. I don't want that. And Katsa is so inspiring, and I really look up to her as a main character. She's one of the best female main characters I've read about in a very long time, like I said, and I already have book 2 borrowed from Libby called Fire. I am so excited to dive into it. I probably will do it tonight or tomorrow. And that is it, rounding out everything I read in January 2026. I had 2 DNFs this month. I didn't want to make a whole separate video on them because it's just 2 of them. But I did DNF Long Live Evil, I'll put them up here, and I DNF'd Red Rising by Pierce Brown. And I'm so mad I DNF'd Red Rising because I was so excited for it. And I'm probably going to hurt a lot of opinions, but it is such a boring book. Nothing happens. It is boring. It is words on paper. Nothing happens in the first half of this book. I got halfway through it and I DNF'd it. Nothing happens in this book. I don't care enough to continue. I don't care enough. Oh, it gets better at the end. It shouldn't be better at the end. It should be better in the beginning. DNF'd both of these. I DNF'd Long Live Evil because it was just so repetitive. Like, the female main character kept repeating herself over and over and over and over and over again. And it was like, honey, I got it. We were there. We know what happens. And she's telling other characters what happened. But instead of just having a sentence of like, she filled them in, or she told them the events that transpired, like, she's like, oh, let's tell the story again. But that is it for me. If you want more from me, I post a lot on Instagram. You can find me at Ripped Page Reviews, as it is on the screen, as well as Threads and here on YouTube. Okay, until we talk again, keep reading, my friends.